Good morning. I am Shantanu Chatterjee. I'm the interim dean of the Terry College of Business, and it is my pleasure to welcome you all here. It is so great to see all of our alumni, friends, some former students who I don't get to see every day come back here to this monthly event that we do throughout the academic year to bring great leaders in the region to come and speak to our community and to share their experiences and their journeys with us and help us leave this room a little bit wiser than we came in. So very happy to see you all here. Now, events like this take a lot of work to put together. So I'd like to thank our alumni board and the members of the alumni board who are here for their tireless efforts in putting this program together and helping us organize this event. And of course, the awesome development and alumni relations team from Athens, who really, I don't know how they do it, but they keep doing it year after year and keep moving the college forward. So can we have an applause for our alumni and I'd also like to recognize our longtime sponsors for this event. Synovus is our corporate sponsor and a great supporter of the Terry College of Business and the University of Georgia. So we appreciate that partnership. And our media sponsor is Public Broadcasting Atlanta, and they've been with us for a long time as well, and we appreciate them as well. This is our second to last event for the fall. Our next event is going to be on November 20th, same time, same place, and will feature Charles Watson, CEO of Small Sliders. So I hope to see many of you here as well. And then we'll resume our programming in January next year. So without further ado, I'm delighted to introduce today's speaker, Susanna Frost, and our Fireside Chat facilitator, Michael Lage. Two great leaders in the Atlanta community and doing fabulous and transformational work. Susanna serves as the president of Chick-fil-A Incorporated, leading the executive committee to ensure the company's long-term health and community impact. She has risen through the ranks at Chick-fil-A, previously holding the role of Chief Restaurant Development and Operations Officer, where she oversaw the entire portfolio of more than 3,000 restaurants. She also served as Vice President of Existing Restaurants and spent 8 years in the company's legal department. Before joining Chick-fil-A, she was a real estate attorney. She has degrees from the University of Georgia in mathematics, a law degree from Emory University, and has completed executive education programs at Columbia University and Harvard Business School. So welcome, Susanna. Good to see you again. It is also my pleasure to introduce today Michael Lage, who will be facilitating today's Fireside Chat with Susanna. Michael is the Vice President of Field Operations Regions, where he strengthens operational systems and stewards the operator relationship across the West, Southwest, and Northeast. A longtime leader at Chick-fil-A, he successfully launched the Chick-fil-A app and mobile ordering, which we all love, I know, definitely in my family, while leading the customer digital experience team. He also served as the executive director for existing restaurants real estate. Michael's background includes roles as a marketing strategist at Facebook and online sales at Google, which perhaps explains the great product that Chick-fil-A has created in the online space. He's also a Georgia Bulldog with a undergraduate degree in finance and marketing from Terry and an MBA from the Harvard Business School, and lives in Atlanta with his wife and 4 children. So welcome, Michael. Good to see you here. So we'd like to welcome Susanna and Michael for the chat and look forward to your comments.
Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you and Susanna. This is a real treat for me. I've had the privilege to work under Susanna's leadership for some time. And so when I found out I got the opportunity to do this, I jumped at it. So, hey, we thought we could jump in first things first. And what are your thoughts on the dogs? Susanna and I share a real passion for the dogs. So talk about last weekend, what we got in front of us. What do you think?
It's stressful. I would say if people say, is my job stressful? I say stressful to be a dog fan right now. You don't know what's going to happen from weekend to weekend, but I believe in the team, and I'm excited, continue to be incredibly excited about Kirby's leadership, and we'll see what happens this weekend.
Yeah, it's a big one. You got a chance to spend time with Kirby, Coach Smart, recently when he came to one of our events. You got to interview him. So, any fun anecdotes from spending time with Kirby personally?
I'll tell this one. We've had the opportunity to see Kirby twice at Chick-fil-A in the last 2 years. One was he was actually interviewed by our CEO, Andrew Cathy, for all of our restaurant store owners and all of our staff members and their spouses. And then I got the chance to interview him kind of in a smaller setting for about 500 of our suppliers. And he told me before we walked out, he said, don't spur me to say anything about another team. Like, don't get me to be ugly, because it'll be on Instagram forever and ever. And so we walk out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to be a really good interviewer. I'm going to do that. The lovely young woman from Chick-fil-A that introduced us introduced herself as an Auburn fan. And Kirby goes out and immediately says, well, that's what happens if you went to Auburn. You introduce people who went to Georgia. And I said, okay, dude, like, I didn't say anything, but you did. We haven't even been out here 30 seconds. So that was, in fact, on Instagram. So that was kind of the moment that will live on from our interview, but it was fun.
Thankfully, it didn't affect Saturday's outcome.
Thankfully, it did not. Yeah.
We're still okay.
Yeah, we were okay.
Susanna, I think the group would love to hear a little bit about your journey. Obviously, becoming the president of Chick-fil-A, such a huge career accomplishment. But can you talk a little bit about what got you here, your background, and sort of your journey along the way?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a really good question. And I don't know that I have all the answers to exactly how or why it happened. I went to the University of Georgia and then decided to go to law school at Emory. I kind of split the difference between my parents. My dad is a lawyer and my mom was a math teacher. So I majored in math at Georgia, and a lot of that just happened without as much thought as I would love to say it did. But I always loved like being a lawyer. And so I actually originally practiced law in Orlando, and then I came back to Atlanta, practiced at Troutman Sanders. We did Chick-fil-A work. And one day got the call to see if I wanted to come in-house. Actually, I have to say, and this is probably not a great thing to say, I really didn't. I actually loved being a lawyer. I was one of those crazy people that didn't mind billing my hours. I kind of thought it was exciting to work on deals all over the country. And I really enjoyed that time. And after I got the phone call from our general counsel at the time, and I said, no, I'm not really interested in moving. And she said, she gave me a gift, and this would just be one of the greatest blessings of my life. She said, hey, I'm going to give you 30 days to think about it. And it can be really hard to get a headcount position at Chick-fil-A. We covet all of our resources, but our people resources definitely are most important. And when you get a headcount position, it's like gold, and you want to fill it before anybody takes it back from you. So I didn't realize what a gift she was giving me at the time to give me that time to think about it. But I decided ultimately I had this 30 days where there was a huge part of me that didn't want to do it, but then there was a huge part that couldn't stop thinking about it. And the senior partner at the law firm gave me some great freedom to say, hey, they're a great client, like go, and if you want to come back, you can. Yeah. So I had these gifts from these two important leaders in my life that really like opened the door for me to do something that I probably really wasn't ready or brave enough to do on my own. I knew Chick-fil-A would be an awesome place to go and try to be a mom, which is a big reason that I went there. And it has been wonderful. We really hope people come to Chick-fil-A and stay a long time. So we know there'll be seasons where they're out of balance with their family or with some other priority in their life. But if you're going to work there for 20 or 30 years, which a lot of people do, we believe it all works out. Came to Chick-fil-A and then got several opportunities. Was actually in the legal department the majority of my career. I got a chance to go be on the real estate kind of business side, and then ultimately field ops, which led to this role. So it's been amazing.
It's very cool. On the family front, it's just really neat to work at a place like Chick-fil-A where our president is a mom, our CEO is a dad, both with young kids. And so as I've got young kids, I'm sort of seeing it modeled for how do you lead while also sort of being in balance, if you will. So you have a great story that I've heard you tell before of being at the law firm before Chick-fil-A. Obviously, just a different culture. And just tell a little bit about that story and how it maybe shaped your leadership philosophy.
Yeah, so it was actually when I was still in Orlando, and I'll never forget this moment. I was in a conference room with a senior partner, and we were working on a big deal. It was like 2 a.m. And finally the opposing counsel got up and like threw a lamp against the wall. And there were a lot of, as we say, non-Chick-fil-A words being spoken. And so there was a lot of energy around getting this deal done. We'd been up for 2 or 3 days. And in the moment, the senior partner looked at me and he just simply said, it doesn't have to be this way. And we went back and worked on due diligence and, continued on throughout the night. And then a couple days later, when we closed, he came back to me and said, "Hey, Susanna, do you know what I meant when I told you that?" And I said, "No, not really." I mean, I was so exhausted. I honestly hardly remembered him saying it at the moment. And he said, "People use hard things as a reason to be unkind, but you can do hard things with kindness. You don't have to make that choice." And he said, sometimes you're exhausted or things are stressful, the stakes are high, but you can always choose kind. And it really is a moment I'll never forget. Like, it gives me chills even when I tell it in this moment, because I haven't always succeeded, but it's always in my mind to try to do hard things with kindness.
Yeah, and I know I've personally experienced that, in business, and certainly in this economy, things are tough and things are hard, but you're always the first to reach out with an encouraging text or an encouraging phone call, and to have that from a leader is pretty inspiring. So talk a little bit about Chick-fil-A. You've been at Chick-fil-A for some time now. What, in your mind, has allowed us to continue to be special and to win in the marketplace?
Gosh, I mean, there's a couple things. We have a founder, his name is Truett Cathy, and I had the privilege of working with him just a little bit when I first got to Chick-fil-A. One thing that people don't know about Truett is he was an incredible restaurateur. He was also a real estate junkie. And being his real estate lawyer was a challenge, because when he was in his late 80s, he would literally call me on the phone and go, "I want to buy that." And I'd say, "Where are you, Truett? What state are you in?" And he would be like, "I think I'm in Florida, but I might already be in Georgia." And so luckily at the time, he had a really competent driver, and he and I would piece together where he was. And then I would go buy that and try to get it for him, because that was like what was giving him joy that late in life. And sometimes it was because, he decided that maybe he could open a catfish restaurant. Sometimes he decided that it'd be a great new place for a foster home or a warehouse, because he was a collector of things. But one of the things that I learned from Truett that I think has just continued to be so true, he had this amazing gift that he did things that were good for people. He was incredibly generous and gracious, but he also always made sure they were good for business. And he embodied both. I remember, this is just a short story, but I think it exemplifies this principle. I was with him once up in his office, and this man came in, and at Chick-fil-A, as you can imagine, every day we get free lunch. And some days it is you grab a Chick-fil-A sandwich, but we have a beautiful cafeteria.
Waffle fries on Fridays.
Yeah.
Fridays are big days.
Yeah, Fridays are big days. Yeah. Milkshakes are always there. So it can be a dangerous place to work, but we also have, salad and fruit and all those special things.
And a great wellness center.
Yeah, we balance. So Truett, this man came in and he was like, "Truett, you're just so generous, and I'm so grateful for this lunch, and it's the best hot meal, and it keeps me energized." And when he walked out, Truett got like this little grin that he used to have. I don't know if you ever saw it, but it was like, "I'm up to something" grin. And I said, "What you thinking, Truett?" And he said, he thinks it's all about free lunch, but he also never takes a lunch break, because our headquarters is kind of a little bit isolated. And so Truett knew that if everybody left for lunch every day, they'd be gone for over an hour, hour and a half. He created this environment where we all feel blessed, but we actually work through lunch every day. We never take a lunch break. He did things like that over and over and over, and really embodied that, I think, in the essence of Chick-fil-A. Obviously, he was a dedicated man who believed in biblical values and principles, and he led that way. We're closed on Sunday. I think that's continued to be really special for Chick-fil-A. A lot of people think that's just because we're Christian, Truett used to say there is no such thing as a Christian company. There's Christian people who work in a company, but he wanted people to have a day of rest. He saw his mom. He grew up with a mom who was very much suffered from a very bad economic situation. His dad left when they were really small, and she ran a boarding house. And he saw what it did to her to work 7 days a week, and he didn't want to do that to others. So that was really the essence of why we're closed on Sunday, so everybody gets that day off. And then, we have this thing that we do at Chick-fil-A. We call it local ownership. We're a franchise, but we do our franchise really different than anyone else. We actually find our stores, build our stores. That's why we had jobs in what we call restaurant development. So our franchisees have a very small contribution to come lead our stores, so we can really pick people that we think will grow and be great leaders. So I would say those three things, really the essence of Truett, the kind of let's be a great company that believes in biblical values and principles, and let's believe in local ownership and what a local leader can do in the community.
Yeah, I love that. Whenever, if people give us compliments around how well Chick-fil-A is doing, we're always very quick to point back to local operators. I mean, they're the men and women who are creating the experiences that you all get to experience every day. Also, a shout out when you talk about Truett. Everyone has a copy of Truett Cathy's book. Amazing, great read and great business story. And so we hope you'll enjoy that. Susanna, talk about you talked about closing Sundays being based on biblical principles. Talk about how at Chick-fil-A we think about remaining true to who we are and our sort of core values as a business in the midst of just a marketplace that's really dynamic, a culture that's really dynamic and constantly shifting. Like, how do you think about us balancing that tension?
It's a hard tension to balance. And I think two of the things that really help us in creating that balance is, one, we're family owned. So we're owned by a family, and they are very clear in what they believe and what values they want us to act on. I think one of the biggest blessings is, of course, I get to work really closely with Andrew Cathy, who's also a big dog in a lot of ways, but a big bulldog. And I've never called Andrew where we've disagreed on something from a value perspective. We don't always agree on the right business outcome, and we can debate those things all day long. I have to call him if we're ever going to, unfortunately, terminate a staff member or end a relationship with a franchise owner. His question is always, have you done everything you can to make sure this person could get all the help they need before we do this? That was a question Truett used to ask. It's still asked in every situation today. So I think just the clarity of having family owners has been an incredible gift. And then I think just, really believing in this principle of local ownership, just to go back to that. There's so many decisions that we make that guides us.
Yeah.
For example, that's how we're trying to approach expanding internationally. And we had lots of debate because most international businesses don't expand that way. They sell master franchises where they'd go into a place like London and sell to private equity or another company, open really, really quickly. The way we're going to do it is going to be slow and steady. And a lot of people from consulting firms all over the world would tell us not smart. But we have these 2 or 3 principles that guide us. And that really, really helps with our direction.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So let's talk a little bit about the business and the restaurant business, specifically real estate. So you've got a real estate background. It's where you've left such a tremendous impact at Chick-fil-A, both thinking about how we're expanding our footprint and growing more restaurants and more markets and even internationally. But talk about how do we think about balancing expanding to new geographies and building out new restaurants while also continuing to invest in our existing portfolio of restaurants, and how do we stay fresh? Like, how do we balance that tension economically, strategically, and how has it helped with our success?
Yeah, it probably is one of the biggest tensions in all of Chick-fil-A, because obviously we've always had this philosophy that we climb with care and confidence. Truett's daughter gave him a poster that said that when she was in college as a Father's Day gift. It still hangs in his office today. And so we've never just taken on a lot of debt and just gone crazy with a bunch of new stores. In fact, for years and years and years, our philosophy was we build 7 more than the number we built last year. which was not strategic. It was just someone said, let's do 7 more one time. And that kind of lived on in principle. We're doing a little more than that now because we know we need to continue to grow. And one of the reasons we do continue to grow is we really do have this principle that we want to invest in our existing restaurants. You know, we aren't only a franchisor, we're also a landlord to every one of our stores, whether we own the dirt or lease it, and then our franchisees sublease it. And we take that obligation really seriously. We know they're working hard. They're doing great volumes. They're trying to provide this incredible guest experience. We can't do that from the support center. Only they can do that. And so we believe that if we give them the facility that they need and that they're excited about, they can create a great team member environment, and then it ultimately leads to that guest. And that's the the way we're all trying to go, is to create that incredible guest experience. So every year, for the past probably 5-10 years, we try to invest the same amount of money in our existing portfolio as we do in our new portfolio. And obviously some of those investments are brand image, but a lot of those investments are really about capacity. And we've tried some new things. Some of them have gone exceedingly well, and some of them hadn't worked as well. And so I think, like everybody in retail, you're reading a lot right now about Starbucks and what Brian Nichols is doing there, trying to go back to creating that kind of third place. Like, we kind of all went far on this digital experience during COVID. I had many people tell me no one will ever eat inside a Chick-fil-A again. This whole business will become about delivery. So there's been a lot of opportunities to experiment lately, which has been great. And now I think we're learning some things and trying to settle into a new portfolio.
Yeah, it's great. It reminds me of, again, good, not just for business, but also for people. And it's counterintuitive that we spend so many resources reinvesting in our existing restaurants. But again, you've been by fast food places that you're like, wow, no one has done anything with that for too long. And we want to make sure that no Chick-fil-A feels like that, so that we're continuing to balance that out. Thanks for sharing that. We could talk about all day, because I feel like I got to learn firsthand from Susanna from a real estate perspective. Okay, so talk about your role now as president. Chick-fil-A, we've become, and we're really grateful because it comes down to operators and customers, but we've become the third largest QSR in the country. You are now president of Chick-fil-A. How do you live? How do you balance? How are you still a mom and a wife and a community member? Like, how do you balance it all? It must be easy. You just
yeah. I don't think about it too much. I mean, I do think that is part of it. Yeah. I don't think about that much, but I think when I think about balance, I remember when I was a young lawyer, I hated when people would say that word. When they were like, "Are you balanced?" And you're like, "No." What do you think I am? Like, look at me. I look like haggard. But what I hope for most people at Chick-fil-A, including myself, including you, including Andrew, is that when they come out of their time there, they will feel like they had a balanced marathon, as opposed to balanced every day. I think all of us are fooling ourselves if that's our goal, is to create balance in your life every day. Mm-hmm. I won't get up at 4:30 tomorrow like I did today, but that's okay. So it's how do you create balance over the seasons? And then this is something that I learned from a fellow mom when I was really new in being a mom. And I think it's such incredible advice for men and women. But she said to me, "Hey, Susanna," this is a really silly story, but she was the kind of mom who on August 1st, she went and bought 50 birthday presents and filled a closet full and wrapped them all. And every birthday present she just grabbed off the shelf. Well, I really like buying birthday presents with my kids. Like, it's something that just happens to be really important to me. Yeah. And I said, "But gosh, what you're doing is more efficient, and maybe I should do that." And she looked at me and said, No. Do what's important to you and find ways to get help with the other things. But don't give up those most important things. Like, protect them with your life. And so if birthday presents are your thing, do that. Don't try to be like other moms or other dads and be efficient in that. Be efficient in something different. And so it really is a principle that's guided me. It's like, hey, all that matters is it's your moment. Like, what's important to you? I think about I'll just be really honest. Some of the school moments I've fought tooth and nail to be at, and I've gotten there, and it's been like 7 minutes of blah. And I thought, why did I cancel that trip to Singapore to do this? But then I think about some really special moments that I might have missed. And every time I'm like, I'm not doing what this lady shared with me. And so choose your moments and then protect them. And then also admit when they're not that big a deal to you and be okay if you miss them.
Yeah, that's really good. I love that. The intentionality of choosing moments. So as you've become president of Chick-fil-A, how have you had to adjust your leadership approach, or maybe what surprised you that you didn't expect about taking on such an incredible role?
Maybe the biggest surprise is it doesn't really change much. I think that when I was a younger leader, or not even a leader, just a person, worker, I always thought, oh, well, if this happens, I won't deal with this anymore. You just deal with more of it. It's like, I remember when I made partner at my law firm, my dad said, well, Susanna, it's like winning a pie eating contest and the prize is more pie. It's a little bit like that. And so the lesson I think I've learned is I wish I had tackled some things earlier in my career, some frustrations, some things that challenge me personally. Sometimes when I do feel conflicted between kindness and hard, I wish I had gotten better at some of those things, because you can believe that they'll go away, but they really don't.
Yeah.
And those leadership lessons you learn, and you learn how to tackle those things and go home at night and put them behind you and move on to the next challenge. I would just tackle it as soon as I could, because finding your way through it will help you forever. And then just always, I think you just have to remember, one of the greatest gifts in my life is I've had a series of really good bosses, including my current one in Andrew. And that's made such a big difference in how to handle this role, because he and I really see it as a partnership. We trust each other and have so much confidence in each other, I hope, but we are also super different. If you look at a sliding scale of introvert to extrovert, we probably are at the two outer ends. And so that makes it interesting and challenging, but it also makes it that we see really different things.
Mm-hmm.
He'll walk out of a meeting and he's like a human spreadsheet. He'll go, did you calculate? And I'm like, no, but did you see how that person was feeling? And he's like, no. And so I'm like, okay, so together, maybe we can do this. We can see both sides of the spectrum together, which has always been the way I think handled any new challenges. Put the people around you that aren't like you. If everybody's like you, you won't see the other side of any story. And then just be thrilled to be able to collaborate and work together on it.
One of Susanna just referenced it. One of Susanna's superpowers is her perception, and she can read body language and tone of voice and the way someone says something, and instantly know that you got to press in there. You got to understand what's going on there. It's probably what made you a really good negotiator.
Well,
but the rest of us are generally oblivious, and Susanna knows exactly what's going on. So I think that's pretty cool. Can you talk about a current challenge that you're in the middle of right now? Maybe something going on in the business or something going on leadership-wise that these leaders would benefit from hearing.
Gosh, there's lots of them. I do think the current challenge is really, what is the future of restaurants?
Mm-hmm.
How will you continue to be a differentiator? It's awesome to be a part of Chick-fil-A. It's also daunting to think about how to keep it going. And we do rely so much on our local ownership, local operators. They make such a significant difference. But you and I are in 3 weeks where we bring every one of them to Atlanta and spend 2.5 days with them on the customer experience, and just trying to continually encourage and thank and see ways that we can continue to be different than others, which is what we really desire to do. Help people have a special moment in their day when they come to Chick-fil-A. It's just constant every single day. And so, I think we've been led by a lot of people who have really taught us that excellence is required, but excellence is exhausting. And so how do you continue to lean into that? Because we know it's what our customers deserve. I mean, anytime they eat with us, they could have chosen to go somewhere else. And so we consider it a real blessing when they choose us. And how do we create value in that experience? Continue to evolve it. What will technology do to it? What will the digital Chick-fil-A customer continue to look like? How will our opportunities for our franchisees continue to thrive? Because we get some of the best because it's an incredibly great opportunity. And so I think that just that mantra of excellence, how do we continue to be better than we are, as opposed to trying to beat Wendy's or Raising Cane's or McDonald's? It's a challenge just to keep going.
Yeah. We've been inspired recently. You know, you hear Coach Smart talking about winning the next moment, right? You've seen highlights, and in so many ways, like what the Dogs have had to do is exhausting, right? Relentless, come back again and again and again and keep winning. And in many ways, we've drawn inspiration on that, because the fast food business is exhausting, and excellence in the restaurant business is exhausting, especially for operators.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I know you and I agree on this. Like, one of our favorite things to do is spend time in our restaurants. I got to visit with 2 operators yesterday in their restaurant. It's where the magic of Chick-fil-A happens. It doesn't happen down at our corporate office. That's just there to support what they do. And so when you go spend time in our restaurants, it really is amazing to see what these 2,500 men and women are doing to lean into their lives. You know, the way they lead their teams and change their lives is like truly remarkable. They're not just fast food employees to them. They care about them deeply. And so that also is, you know, just what's so inspiring to me, the difference they make.
Talk about the operator in Chicago and his how he inspired a young person in his community.
Oh yeah. So I'm giving this talk right now. All our operators are coming in. So we're having 6 different sessions. So it's kind of a marathon month for us. And I was recently in Chicago in the South Loop, which I don't know if you've never been there. It's a pretty hard neighborhood. And we have this great operator who had, you know, worked all over the place, been a big consulting guy, and he decided to make a difference in the lives of people at team members for Chick-fil-A. And so I said, hey, I'm giving this talk about the difference between being positioned to win and choosing to play to win. And so what does it look like for you and your team to play to win? And he thought about it for a second. And he said, you know, there's this young man, he's 12 years old. He's a customer in my restaurant. And last year he decided to dress up like me for Halloween. And he said, that's when I knew like I had made a difference in his life. And think about this, like for those of you who have had or know a 12-year-old boy, to inspire a 12-year-old boy is hard if you're not Kirby or someone like that. And so for a Chick-fil-A operator to influence and impact him to the point that he wants to be him for Halloween, that's pretty remarkable.
Oh yeah.
Because he too wants to make a difference in his community, and he comes to the restaurant. We've gotten him his own name tag. And so it, you know, it's a pretty inspiring story, but we see that over and over again with what the difference our operators make in people's lives.
Yeah, one of the unofficial questions that we ask potential franchisees, or we ask of potential franchisees as we're interviewing them, is, would I want my kids to work for this individual? And that's the next bar of like, would I want my kids to dress up for this individual?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it just speaks to the great leaders that we have as operators. Susanna, I've personally experienced curiosity as one of your, the kind of cornerstones of your leadership. Susanna asks the best questions of anyone in the business, and would just love to hear more about that. How do you think about leveraging curiosity, especially in the midst of having to make so many hard decisions and make so many hard calls?
You know, well, it really, again, all goes back to some advice I got from a really great mentor. But a mentor of mine said one time, you know, Susanna, like, don't try to be interesting, try to be interested. And I think as a lawyer, you know, it kind of comes naturally. You're sort of trained to ask questions. You know, you get burned a few times as a young lawyer where the question you didn't ask is the one that no one said, and something blows up. And so I just generally do feel curious. Like, I just generally love to learn more about things. I don't know that I ask great questions. I do ask a lot of questions. Another huge lesson for me, though, is it can backfire. I mean, I remember I did a like Team 360 review a couple years ago with a team I was leading in restaurant development. And the feedback came back through this coach, like, well, she asked so many questions that I know she already knows the answer to. And she's just trying to see if I do, or trick me, or she doesn't trust me. That was the big, like, emotional throw out. She doesn't trust me. And I was like, yeah, I don't actually know the answer. Like I'm not in the details of this. I don't know. I'm asking you because I don't. But it was a big watch out and a big moment, because then I had to like really reflect. I would never want someone to feel like I don't trust them, but this is kind of how I get through the day. So what am I going to choose to do here? Am I going to choose to keep asking these questions, or am I going to do it the way you want me to do it? I get it. When Andrew asks me questions and I don't know the answer, it stinks. I mean, it's like, I don't know, but I'll find out. You don't want to give that answer to your boss. But I had to choose to ultimately lean into the only way I kind of knew how to do it. And so I recognize, like, some of the times my questions are not met with gratitude. Or, like
They take on an extra weight nowadays.
well,
too.
yeah. But it's kind of the only way I know how to do it. And I generally do love to learn about Chick-fil-A and about the business and the decisions we're making. And so, yeah, it's kind of the only way I know how to do it.
Yeah. It's just really cool when you're in the midst of, a lot of challenging decisions, or with a lot of different factors. We could go this way or we could go that way. Do we launch this product, or we open that restaurant, or do we change this concept? Do we invest money here? And Susanna oftentimes will ask the question that kind of unlocks this is the direction we ought to take. So I've been inspired by that. Talk more about your leadership approach, your kind of leadership philosophy, or also talk about any leaders that you specifically learned from or been inspired by.
Well, at Chick-fil-A, we are so blessed that we have always been led by leaders who truly believe in your own growth and development. And so we've had the opportunity to spend time with people like Jim Collins and Marcus Buckingham and, some of the best kind of leadership gurus. But I'll say the people that I've always learned the most are the leaders that I've always been the closest to, the people that I've worked for directly. And, the thing that has benefited me is to try to work for a bunch of different types of people. Mm-hmm. I worked for a guy that, his name's Jimmy Addison. I don't know if anyone knows Jimmy, but he was actually the quarterback for Clemson University in the late 60s, is known as the Needle. And like my dad talks about remembering when he wanted to see him play. He was a brilliant real estate guy, and just like never said anything appropriate. And so I learned a lot from him, but he was just the best of the best, and like a hard worker. And then I've worked for people who, just take lots of different approaches. And that's always what I've learned the most. You pick up the things you want to take with you. You learn some things that maybe you don't want to do as well from some folks. But those everyday examples of leaders who are not just writing about it, but actually doing it and getting through the day, has always been what's kind of molded me and inspired me the most.
So you told me once that the leaders who've had the biggest impact on you are leading you, and you don't realize they're leading you.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about that?
Well, oftentimes, the people that impact you the most are the people that you have a conversation with, or you have a decision-making session with. You're influenced by them, and you get home in the car and go, oh, yeah. Like, we used to have these two guys at Chick-fil-A. I love this story because they were two totally different folks. They were both real estate guys, and people used to say one of them would tell you you're stupid and he wouldn't know he'd said it. And one of them would tell you you're stupid and you wouldn't know he'd said it until you reflected on it a couple hours later. I think both those styles are so true. It's kind of like, how do you surround yourself with people who influence you, impact you, lead you? And you might not recognize that that's even happened until you get home at the end of the day. I remember when I got this role, a peer said, well, our old boss never told me what to do. And I thought, well, except for every day of the week and twice on Sundays, he just led in such a gracious way that you didn't realize you were being led necessarily. Yeah. He was a master at that. He was brilliant at that. So you embraced all this autonomy, but he had actually kind of peacefully guided you through your journey. And And so leaders like that have had a huge influence on me.
Yeah. One of the hallmarks of great leaders that I've experienced at Chick-fil-A is, and Susanna is like the epitome of this, is they're just so disarming that you find yourself spending time with them and you just totally let your guard down because they're so wonderful and they're so friendly and they're so inquisitive. And if you're not careful, you forget, oh no, like this is the president of the company. Like I've got to be on point here. I've got to know. So it's something I've admired about you, but it's sometimes tricky. Well, hey, I want to open it up, and we've got time for questions from the audience because I know you all have probably been thinking about questions that you'd want to ask Susanna about Chick-fil-A or her leadership approach. So I'll open it up for any questions. Yeah, here, and then we'll go there.
Morning, Susanna.
Good morning.
On international,
Yes.
you mentioned that.
Yes.
What's the hardest thing around culture transfer globally, outside the U.S.?
You know, I mean, one hard thing is customers have different tastes internationally. So you've got to combat like having a great product. And I think for us, one of the things that has been challenging is, you know, admitting where we can be the same and then admitting where you have to be really different. Like in Canada, we learned that lesson in spades because it's like you feel close to the United States, but a Canadian will quickly tell you, don't come here and be a brand that just exists in the United States. And then I think the other thing that the leader of international is a woman named Anita Costello. She's an incredible leader. And I think one thing she's done is we've planted offices, and we have an office in London, we have an office in Singapore, and we have an office in Canada. She's done a great mix of like sending kind of a culture carrier from Chick-fil-A to be there, but then also hiring local talent that kind of fits with who we think Chick-fil-A is and how Chick-fil-A can be represented. It takes a while. We're different. And I think when we hire people, they go, no way, that's true. Like y'all don't really do that. Y'all don't really have devotion every Monday morning, which is of course optional, but you know, you don't really do some of the things that we do. I remember when I first got to Chick-fil-A, and I hesitate to tell this story because we do work hard at Chick-fil-A. But when I first got to Chick-fil-A, and you know, I'd of course have been at a law firm, keeping my time by the 6 minutes. You know, your product was your time at a law firm, and so you were selling yourself. I got home and I walked into this team meeting, and we celebrated a birthday. And then we had a big pep rally to get excited about the spicy chicken sandwich. And then Truett came on the intercom and told us to go all buy his oranges in the lobby. And my husband called me about 2:00 and was like, how's your first day? And I'm like, well, we hadn't worked yet. I mean, you know, it was just like, this is romper room down here. I don't know. And it was a big adjustment for me. My first 6-8 months, there were a lot of nights that I drove home and thought, I'm going to get fired because I'm not really working. You know, we're a very collaboration-based company, and that can often be criticized. That's been hard to translate internationally. They want to know who's in charge and who's the decision maker and what's the hierarchy. And we're like, well, let's just talk about it. See if we can all get to the same place. You know, sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But the main thing I think we've done is given it a lot of time. We've opened our offices several years before we'll actually have a restaurant open. Because again, back to those values that guide us, we don't want a restaurant to open without adequate support. It's so important to us that we support our franchisees. And so that time and that just real learning, bringing them to Atlanta, letting them see us in our support center, bringing them all to these things like these 2.5 days that Michael and I are experiencing right now, and just really trying to embed them in our culture has probably been the biggest thing.
Yeah, great question. Right here.
Good morning.
I'm Leon. I work for Synovus, the retail market leader for North Georgia. And when I look at the business and I think about the consumer, one thing that's been consistent year after year is that folks want things faster. And to me, Chick-fil-A has set the tone as it relates to technology, strategy from an operational standpoint inside of your stores. And the biggest one is people. But what's next? Is that on your radar at your level? And what's next?
Yeah, I mean, we're thinking about that all the time. at Chick-fil-A, we've always had this philosophy. If we're honest, we're probably not first to most things. We're kind of fast followers. So our strategy is to study our competition a lot and then also study ourselves. Again, we are so fortunate to have our 3,000 operators. Most of the best ideas that you see at Chick-fil-A came from one of them. And what we then come in and do is help fund it and scale it to the whole chain. So part of Michael's job, part of my job, one reason we spend so much time in our restaurants is we constantly source ideas from individuals. Chick-fil-A sauce, doing face-to-face ordering in the drive-through. Some of those started in like super clunky ways. People were like making our IT department have nightmares. They were like rolling registers out in the middle of the street. But we can come along and create technology and ideas. I don't know exactly what's next. I do think that Chick-fil-A will always be people-centered. So I think we'll take advantage of next technology, next AI. I doubt you'll ever only be able to take your order through your phone. We haven't wanted to do kiosk. We don't think they're great experiences for guests. We'd rather you have your kiosk in your hand. So we put all our efforts into our app. But we always want you to be able to get a great experience, see a smile if that's what you're craving, not see a smile if that's what you're craving, and always be able to fix your problem. And if you don't have humans somewhere, it's hard to step in and fix those things. So I think we'll continue to double down on people and double down on technology, and hopefully our sweet spot will be the marriage of those two things.
Yeah, and you talk about innovation. The home of Chick-fil-A milkshakes originally is Athens, Georgia.
Yeah.
Our operator there, Shane Todd, was experimenting, and we had to ask him to experiment a little tighter, but we came up with Chick-fil-A milkshakes.
You're in Athens and you go see Shane, just ask him what's not really on the menu.
Yeah, ask him what he shouldn't be serving,
Yeah.
and there's something good that's going on probably.
Yeah.
What else? Other questions? Yeah.
Hey, were there any programs or experiences that you could tell really developed you professionally and also personally, but that you walked away and I would recommend that to anybody?
Well, the one that probably developed me the most, and I mean, I want to just say up front, I was super fortunate to do it, and I'm also grateful I did it before COVID. But I got a chance to go live in Boston and go to Harvard for 10 weeks. And first of all, I learned a lot. Almost no one, the number of people from the United States in my class was less than 20% of the class. So there were people from, I think 80 countries. And so it was an incredible experience. It was also incredible, probably most so for my family. So my kids were 4 and 5. We lived in an apartment at the time, which ended up being a blessing. But it wasn't a great situation. I would just side note, don't pick an apartment that you want to live in for 4 to 6 weeks because you think you'll find a house and stay there for 2 years. So we were on the back end of that 2 years. So we were kind of busting at the seams. But gosh, the way my husband stepped up and poured in and, took care of my family. I remember the very first night they ended up in the ER, and I thought this is going to be a really long 10 weeks. I remember the day the school called, and for my friends, don't tell Jeff I said this, but the school called and said, "Are you out of town?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Jeff has got to bathe them." They smelled. But at the end of the 10 weeks, I came home and they were happy and healthy and closer than they've ever been. And
Bathed.
And now I travel all the time and I have so much peace about what they are doing at home and the closeness they have. And I really do think in the end of the day, it'll be such an incredible gift for my daughters that they had this time with their dad that some people don't have as much time with their dad, and the way he's poured into them and they've learned to do things together and just have such a close and special relationship. There's hardness in that too. The mom doesn't want to feel the one on the outside ever. And I remember when I first came home, it was hard. Like they had changed things around. They weren't doing things exactly the way that I wanted them done. And we'd gotten some really good advice from some people in the military when we left that program. Like, don't go home and ruffle all the feathers. Acknowledge that you've been gone. This one guy that was in the Australian Navy, he told a story about how when he went home early from deployment, his wife was excited to see him, and she said, "I've done this great thing. You're going to be so excited." And she opened the back door, and she had built a swimming pool. And he goes, "Honey, we rent this house." Somehow she didn't know that. So his story was, hey, things are going to change while you've been gone. But anyway, that's a really long answer to a short question. But the point is, like, what stretched me the most of that experience was actually how it stretched and grew my family. And I learned a lot, read a lot of books, met a lot of really, really cool people. But the way it changed my family let me know I could say yes to this job. And so take advantage of some of those things. And some of them work and some of them don't. And if they don't work, you learn what you don't want to do. But it was a way for me to grow and lean into a different dynamic that I didn't know if it would really work.
Yeah, that's good. The questions.
Right here. Hey, Susanna, Ken Ashley, enjoyed your talk this morning. Could you tell us about your leadership style and how many direct reports do you have? How often do you meet with your team? How does that work on a daily basis?
Sure. Yeah, I have, let's see, I lead our whole executive committee. So 9 direct reports. And then I have an incredible chief of staff, and Lauren Espy, she's right here. She keeps me straight. And then my administrative assistant, Rachel Rogers. So 10 in all. And we meet a pretty good bit because like I said, we like to talk. So we meet most Mondays. Sometimes it's a quick huddle for an hour and a half. Once a month, it's almost all day. Then we'll meet a second day once a month to really work on strategy and planning and budget collectively as a team. And then I meet individually with each of them once a month. Try to travel with each of them at least once a year just to see how they're thinking about our restaurants, again, where the magic really happens, and lean in to kind of, like we always say at Chick-fil-A, if you can meet with somebody every week for a year, but if you get on the road with them for 2 or 3 days and have windshield time, just you're learning about what they're thinking, how they're thinking about the business grows. So we do a lot of that. Everybody has a lot of, I hope they feel like they have a lot of autonomy. We have a great executive committee that has incredible experience in the functions they lead. But, we always talk about, we're not really leading a downhill ski team. We're leading more of a soccer team. And everybody's work at Chick-fil-A is so interconnected that when we go through seasons where we don't meet enough, people are doing great jobs in their functions, but we're just not thinking about the enterprise enough, and not thinking about how you can't really do anything at Chick-fil-A in operations that doesn't affect marketing, that doesn't affect finance. So it calls us to come together and really understand what people are working on.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Maybe time for one more question. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Mary. I work at Chick-fil-A. So I'm impressed that y'all are here during Winning Hearts. That's awesome. So my question's going back to the 30 days where you were thinking about whether or not you wanted to go to Chick-fil-A and what ultimately led to you deciding to go to Chick-fil-A.
Really what ultimately led was the freedom that my senior partner gave me that said, hey, this isn't risky because you can come back. He said, as long as I work here, just go. And, law firms, at Chick-fil-A, if someone leaves, honestly, we have like less than 1% retention. So, this, if someone leaves, it's a big deal. We all know about it, all 3,000 of us really. At the law firm, if you went on vacation, it was kind of like, who left last week? And so it just had a different mentality about coming and going. But he truly just gave me this opportunity to try it. And I had a season that I thought I would go back. I thought I'm going to get here, have a baby 9 months after the day I get there, and then go on back. That was my kind of life plan. And obviously, I had a different path in store for me. But his freedom, one, incredible loyalty from me to him. I always directed all my work to Troutman because of the gift he'd given me and because I knew he was an incredible lawyer. So like just my leadership lesson in that, if there is one, is sometimes you'll have great employees that want to fly. Don't close that door, or block them from being a part of your organization later, because they might go learn just the thing that you need to continue to grow your business. And so really his encouragement to just go try it was what helped me. At the time, Chick-fil-A was super different. We were, now we're in like 7 buildings across the South Side. There's a lot of movement within Chick-fil-A. At the time, people weren't really leaving and we weren't that big. So the real dilemma for me was people said, well, you're going to go and you're going to have this very job for the rest of your life. People said things like, you'll never be promoted, you'll never grow. Not because I wouldn't have maybe done a good job or a bad job, just because it was just kind of stagnant there. Then we got just kind of sort of blessed with this crazy growth curve. And I think a lot of people who'd been at Chick-fil-A for 40 or 50 years literally started to retire. So some opportunity came my way that I didn't anticipate, which was an amazing experience. But I really credit the Needle for like giving me the license to go.
Very cool. Well, Susanna, would love for you to just have a last word, whether it's career advice for the group or ways that you've been shaped or anything that you would want to leave the group with as we kind of wrap our time this morning.
Okay, well, thank you. I mean, first of all, I'll just say thank you all. I know everybody in here has a precious commodity, and that's time. So super honored and grateful that you would choose to spend the morning with us. At Chick-fil-A, we love to say if we can ever help you in any way, professionally or personally, we'd be honored to. And I mean, I think, a great piece of leadership I got once was like, hey, I had this really awkward moment. I had just been at Chick-fil-A for a few minutes, literally. And I was having this conversation with this really senior leader. And he thought I was kind of selling myself. And I wasn't, but obviously I had some growth to do because it sounded like I was. And so he said, hey, Susanna, just keep your eyes on your own paper. Like dive in and be really happy with what you're currently doing. And when you're really happy with what you're currently doing, 99% of the time it leads to going to do something else. Yeah. But if you don't love it, go do something else now, because you don't want to spend your whole career waiting for the thing that might make you happy. And so my encouragement would just be, don't wait for the thing that might make you happy. Lean in and do what you love, and life's too short to do anything else.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Susanna. Would you join me in thanking?